The reason I chose that topic today is because there's no point building innovative new products and services if you can't get anybody to buy them. You need to create demand for those innovations. And in fact, there's no point even thinking about building something if you can't even articulate a value proposition for it. If you can't put that into words, you're not going to be able to sell it, so don't bother building it. But this is where I think I should stay in my lane, and that's why I'm going to call on today's guest speaker, which is Tom Perry. Tom has devoted his career to marketing and set up his agency Sherpa in 2012, I believe. It's a global specialist channel agency for tech companies. And recently, I think you've added an AI platform, Edison AI, which is for AI-driven partner marketing. And 10 years ago, Tom had the idea of a socially driven, socially proofed recommendation engine, and my team actually helped to build that. So I was quite delighted that after all of those years, Tom accepted my invitation to come and talk today. So thank you for that, Tom. Tom's talk is titled "Creating the Demand Engine You Need to Scale." And welcome, Tom. The stage is yours.
Graham, thank you very much. My name is Tom Perry. I am the CEO of the Sherpa Group. And as Graham said on his introduction, we have been around for since 2012. And we have been, good Lord, I don't know what's going on here. We've been in the marketing business and creating demand. As Graham mentioned, our first engagement was over 10 years ago on Recommendable. That was around creating demand for SMB. And that was a project that we got off the ground, but it needed quite a lot of funding. We morphed that business into another small agency called ZapHub, which delivers SMB marketing and demand services. And then my main business, which is a combination of two agencies, Sherpa and the IT marketing agency, is where we create a lot of demand for global tech brands and their partners. So what I wanted to do was try and it's quite hard to know where to pitch these things, but I wanted just to try and lay out more a framework and some tactics and a process that we recommend both in the ZapHub world for SMB, but also in the world of tech firms and the work we do with their partners. And their partners can be anything from a single person consulting or an agent selling particular technology solutions, right up to your other tech firms, in partnerships, but also your Accentures of the world. And so we focus a lot on demand gen, and that's really what I want to try and cover today. So that's what I'm going to run through. In terms of the kind of foundation, I just want to really talk about some principles around demand generation strategy. And this isn't a big strategy session because I want to get to the good stuff around tactics and implementation. But really, the world of demand in the sort of, I had 10 years client side before in a marketing role. So I've been at this probably 25 years. But it's quite a simple process, but once you get beneath the main stages, there's quite a lot to consider. And we talk about three main stages, and we have done for a number of years now, because it aligns and you can fill up each of these stages and buckets with different tactics and different measurements. But we talk about making potential customers aware of your brand and your offering, positioning the solution that you've got, and then guiding them towards decision. And we don't talk really about a funnel that's in any way different, but we do talk about a number of different tactics around awareness, consideration, decision. And we have another part here on the side, which is the partner and the vendors. We have to manage that interface, and we're pretty good at partner management. But I wanted to draw your attention really to some of the stats down here. Some of these are from LinkedIn, and on this deck, which I'll let everybody have, of course, I put the references because there's a ton of information out there, and sifting this down and aligning it just to give some proof points to how we go to market is what I wanted to try and do today. So, the core stat here is only 5% of your addressable market. And when I say addressable market, I don't mean the big, UK market. I mean those that are serviceable by you. It could be by geography, by specialization, are going to be in the market at any one time. And of those 5%, and it can vary, the 70% of the journey that potential buyer will go on is now happening before you've even spoken to them. So that implies a very, very big digital setup. But you are going to have in place certain assets, tactics, and measurements that allow you to create your own demand. And for me, the point I've kind of scribbled down here is, a lot of SMBs, and certainly in our background, having multiple companies, we would say, oh, well, we're getting enough referrals in, and you go, oh, that's great, but referrals are reasonably uncontrollable. And I think creating a demand generation environment and infrastructure is hugely important to give you the control of, aligning to your budgets, your stage of development, and the innovation you're doing that Graham just mentioned. What IP do you have? Who are you trying to target? So demand generation and making a start, again, as Graham said, and I love the traffic jam analogy, is you can start small, and we'll get into some of the light tactics a bit later, and then we can always map those up into the more sophisticated ones. But one of the areas that's become very apparent for my businesses in the last 3 years is one of partnerships, and having complementary relationships in and around our companies that amplify reach and relevance. Now, of course, that's the market we're serving anyway, so we've got this kind of inside knowledge on it. But it's very important that I think you can get started in creating your demand engine with partnerships, or on your own, or a blend of the both. And it's important to map that. And we help a lot of those partners we work with selling tech solutions to say, okay, who else in this big community, let's say the Microsoft community, this Microsoft community of 400,000 partners Microsoft have, which ones would you align with? What are the complementary solutions? So partnerships features here. But I don't want that to be the focus of today. I want this to be about infrastructure and creating the environment and the engine. But, all our businesses talk about leads, MQL, SQL, opportunities and measurements and funnels like that. But I think there's a big push on now for quality engagement. There is a ton of noise out there in the marketplace, and you're going to make a start making your own noise. But I think what you should be realizing is that you're going to have to build almost some always-on machinery because of this last point, where engagement can take between 10 to 15 instances of initial contact that might happen, in that 70% before they even get to you. It could be the 10, 1 to 12 are digital, on social, on your website, in an email, at an event, whatever they might be, and then the last 2 or 3 are where you're actually going to engage as people to people. So there's some references in there, and I think what I want to just get into now is just looking at top to bottom and campaigns. Campaigns are what drive us. Now, campaigns could be just a suite of always on marketing activities, or they could be specific to your product, to your IP, to your environment, whatever you're doing, product launches. And we don't veer very much from 3 stages of tunnel, top, middle, and bottom. But we do understand that there are differing objectives in top, middle, and bottom. And top is really around understanding the pain, the customer pain that exists in the target market you want to get. And then it's around your credentials and experience to solve that problem, and then telling them what the solution is. So, if we look at top of funnel, middle, and bottom, we're sparking awareness and generating interest, building trust, and that's hugely, hugely important. I know if I'm Googling something for one of the businesses here, and let's say it's a piece of a software, we're gonna go to the website, we're probably gonna have a look at pricing, and we're gonna look at who you're doing it for currently. And so that proof point, which is the credentials and experience, so that journey of identifying pain, presenting and experience and getting to the solution is really what we put into top, middle, and bottom of funnel. And again, there's some good references there. But what does it look like? How do we bring this home into the business? And what can you start with? You can't suddenly run and buy, Marketo or HubSpot. Well, you can buy HubSpot. HubSpot's wildly expensive, and we run it here in the main business. But you will have a website. You hopefully will have a light CRM. You will have email, organic analytics, and some automation. So there's an essential bare minimum that you probably need, and then we can get more sophisticated depending on your situation. And demand generation tools, there are I don't know if anyone's heard of Scott Brinker. Scott Brinker is somebody who about 14 years ago started publishing a slide on MarTech solutions, and demand generation is very much in this. And I think in the market today, that started at 15 or 20, we're now 8,000. You can't get them all on a slide, right? But there's a lot of tech out there, and we advise on technology for the partners we work with, and in the Zap Hub world, where we are saying, okay, it's got to be fit for purpose. It's got to match your budget. It's got to deliver ongoing, and it's got to deliver value. So there's a whole infrastructure and tech stack conversation to be had. But I think there are some basics you need, and then there are some advanced ones. But depending on, it doesn't matter what tools you have, you've still really got to go through a process of defining your demand goals. How much net new do we want? How much customer marketing do we want to do? Because this infrastructure should be able to do both, and defining those goals is very important. Mapping the journey of your demand journey, and then evaluating whether the tech is going to stand up. Now, we get to some businesses certainly in the Zap Hub and the SMB, like restaurants and physiotherapy therapists. What else do we do? We do a couple of software platforms that are in their infancy, where we're looking at the bare minimum to get started and making sure that that solution is on all the time and is whirring away and building your data profile and your data lake. So I'm not going to go into lots of recommendation about tools, except I think you've got to start and put in, and review also what you've got. So one of the most important activities that we then get involved with is around targeting. And I'm going to show you an example of the targeting that we do as Sherpa as the business, where we want to talk to the top 500 technology vendors in the world, and we've mapped that and we know that. And then there are people within that business who have responsibility for this for what we provide. We do know there's some verticals, but there's also a size. And this targeting, it's not a big exercise to do. And the temptation for lots of SMBs is, well, we'll just take what we can get, or we'll go horizontal and you'll go cross vertical, or you might be within a certain geo. And this can be adapted quite easily, this model. But it's really important before you start any demand generation that we have thought around this, because you are bringing expertise. You have set up your businesses to be professional entities that provide a service that solves issues, and getting it into the hands or the eyeballs or the inboxes or the websites of the people who have that issue is where we do a lot of this targeting. And if I can just show you the Sherpa example. Now, it's on a strategy side, but I want you to kind of get a feel for how important the targeting that I've just talked about on the previous slide is. So we have a one-phrase strategy, one for recurring revenues, but this whole left-hand side here is around, okay, there's 1,100 companies in the two markets we're in. We're in enterprise and mid-market. We know that we have core regions for one of the services, strategic insight and design. We have differing kind of regions for executions, and then we have 4 key personas, and they normally map, and we do see this, into owners of parts of businesses and operators. Owners and operators is fairly common. We see across these things, and then we have some other stuff around our products and things like that, and how we're differentiating. But the targeting is what drives this kind of left-hand side, and it's really, really important for us to do that work before we build the engine. But as Graham said in the introduction, there is your story, and your story or your value proposition, and trying to create a uniqueness around it is, again, this is not an onerous process to go through, and you will have this in your head or you have it in your business already, but it's very much around what you do, your product or service, the value you create, how you can implement this for synergy, the audience we just talked about targeting, how you get the value proposition out, and how you test it and reiterate it. The slide I showed you, which is the one-page strategy for Sherpa, which leads into our kind of value proposition, which is, you know, smarter partner marketing. So you have to put a sort of marketing cherry on the cake. That's our kind of strap line, is very much around having an AI platform that does partner marketing. That's the Edison platform that Graham mentioned, and it's our product. Our product is then also a catalogue of marketing campaigns run by professionals who manage partners, and those three elements make up our value proposition. And it's really, we've tried to simplify that down as much as we can, and we know then we're offering that to the core personas that's how it's going to go to market. So the other really important thing here is just to understand, and this is our market, what sort of different marketing assets, you know, we talked about reviewing the tech stack in marketing or demand creation for the stage you're at, and are you going to be at MailChimp and, you know, a Wix website, or are you going to be at, you know, HubSpot or Marketo or Oracle, wherever you are in size of business. But we know that there are certain pieces of content that work well at that top, middle and bottom of funnel, and for our industry, and this is quite easy to map again for any kind of business we work with. What's happening in the world of X? You know, so I think Chris mentioned Chris, I don't know your business, but it sounds like you've got a care business. So what's important to those people? What is the messaging you can be putting out into the world? Or you can be aligning yourself. You don't need to become an analyst. You don't need to co-brand and co-fund research. There's stuff out there that you can be serving to a marketplace that is collaborative and of use to them. And I think you're just trying to say, oh, okay, that business that, you know, is aware of the industry and the market and the challenges we had. In the middle, the one I would always start with here is use cases and your references as a business. You know, how do you create competitive advantage in your content? This, you know, we see a lot of one pagers here, you know, the case studies of who you've done it before, can be middle and bottom. But I think the other, you know, bottom of funnel is where we get to ROI proof and demos, and you're going to need some engagement to get to in bottom of funnel. That's why, you know, you can't demo. I mean, you can demo on video, but I think they have limited use. But you want to kind of use demos, ROI proof as that discovery stage. So, you know, by the time you're at the bottom of the funnel, you want to be having a discovery conversation. But of course, there are a myriad of formats out there, and the question we always get asked in SMB world is, what do I start with? You know, and I think it depends on the business and what you're trying to do, but I would certainly start with a basic CRM and marketing automation platform. I would start building an email list, and I would start, you know, you can get out onto LinkedIn and do more and more there, and then you can add all sorts of all layers, but you're going to need that, you know, that assessment of the tech stack. You're going to need your targeting, and you're going to need at least a small art library of assets to go out with. And so I think, but it's important that you map, you know, you don't want to be emailing out to a top of funnel prospect your best case study straight off the bat. That I mean, you know, whilst that can work, you want to have built a bit of a rapport in the top of the funnel that allows middle and bottom to work in that regard. So in terms of the tactics that we can recommend, you know, I've got a kind of lower budget line here in blue. I said CRM, free tools like LinkedIn, and whatever your offer is around free trials. You can use organic social posts. We still run a lot of organic social for clients at ZapHub. We do email marketing, you know, and SEO sits in there as well. And then there is a nurturing phase, and we often work with partners of big tech firms who obviously want a lead, but they don't want an MQL, marketing qualified lead. They want a sales opportunity to talk to. And often what gets ignored in demand creation is the nurture part. You create, if there's only 5% of, you send 100 emails out, 5% are ready to engage in some format. You've got 95 that need nurturing. And so nurturing is a hugely important activity that needs some automation around it. And guess what? As you get into higher budgets, you can get more sophisticated on either of these stages, about finding, engaging, and nurturing. But the minute you grasp the nettle on nurturing, you are into almost an always-on model of marketing or demand creation that just needs a level of automation. I think they're behind it. Just a couple of to getting near the end there, but just to wrap up, and I think it's important that you don't try and do too much to start with. You can build into any of these, as I've said a few times, and you can look at outreach triggers, measurement, how the messaging, multi-channel, whatever you want to do, but you need just some structure on day one. And if your structure is, we're going to send some emails out and do some LinkedIn and do some organic social, let's measure each of those as a as their own activity and report back. And if they don't work, let's drop them. And so we do a lot of test and iterate at the moment. And that's all built around the measurement that we can do at all points of the funnel. Now, this doesn't need huge, big, in fact, here at Sherpa, which is the largest company we've got in the group, we're managing some of this on Excel spreadsheets, even though we have HubSpot, because HubSpot does some of this and we do all our sales forecasting in HubSpot, but sometimes the marketing funnel needs to be pulled out into Excel, and that's absolutely fine. We've got no issue with that. But we have a kind of leads to marketing qualified leads to sales accepted leads to sales qualified leads to opportunities, and that is top, middle, and bottom, and that's, there are different kind of measurements at each point. But the big point about this slide is that saying, yeah, great job, guys, we got 12 leads in this week, is where those 12 leads are in 4 to 6 weeks time, and measuring the conversion at each point and how long they take. And again, this is very accessible, but most small businesses we talk to, if they can improve their conversion rates within the controllable activities that you can do from the desktop, so this isn't let's spend tons and tons more on Google advertising or Bing or whatever it might be, but it's about how do we convert better at each point of the sale. And we get involved with a lot of these businesses, and we have an analogy called bricks and mortar. And each of these stages is a brick in building your demand generation engine. But what's the mortar or the cement you put between each one, where you're delivering more value to that prospect? Oh, I thought you'd like, this report. I thought, oh, we've done some work on this. I thought this might be interesting. You've got to stay top of inbox. And so we talk about, the stages being the bricks and the actual what we do in between the stages as the mortar, because you're trying to drive a small lift in conversion. If you lift conversion, you don't need to spend more at the top of the funnel. And I think understanding how you lose business is fine during this process, but most important we find now is analyzing how you win business and look at the interactions that have happened on that journey. We've just done analysis for a really big bit of business we won, which took 7 months to come in. It's with a very big American software HR platform, and we recognized that we had in excess of 30 bona fide interactions on the journey to get there. Now, that was a big contract, and I sort of picked that one because I know we've gone back and mapped it in a win process that says, okay, this is how we got it to, and what's repeatable within that, and what can we systemize. So the measurement is really, really important. But it wouldn't be, one of the things I'm obviously cognizant of, I'm trying to give you a bit of a structure and a framework, and we're happy to have any discussions about how we could morph this for any particular businesses on the call today, but I had to keep it a little bit generic. But what can AI do for me? And we've built an AI platform. We were lucky enough to be asked by Intel to build a system to analyze 27,000 of their partners and how they engaged with Intel. And it's a big old bit of work, but it got us started on our AI journey. And now I'm very much with that piece of platform at the center of our operations, looking for around the periphery of our business and what it can do. And then we're also being asked by marketing customers. So in terms of messaging and content, generating ideas now on AI is very easy. You can rewrite things. We've got our marketing team shamelessly use ChatGPT, Claude, a couple of others, and they can generate really quick content structures. We're talking on the buy versus build conversation. We're talking to a platform that we might test next week that can personalize content at scale. Now that can either be to persona level, or it can be actually in our case to partner level. So we take a piece of, let's say, a piece of Microsoft content, and AI will allow us to adapt it and co-brand it for Microsoft partners to hundreds of them in minutes, which would have been a really big design list before. So there's some messaging and content work. There's certainly an audience intelligence piece around analyzing your web traffic, or who's spending time on your website. And now these would have been intent platforms, which were really expensive when they first came out. But this whole world is changing because of the access to the data. In terms of asking, what the best subject line is, should I have an orange button? Should I have a blue button in my email? There's a whole component optimization piece here. And then, as I said, there's a big personalization journey coming. And so, there's talk of, 1, 2, 3, 4 people organizations becoming big. Well, they're going to be the ones, I think, that can market themselves at scale into a market, can get to the data, and can have this testing environment. But AI, we're seeing, is not going to replace a lot of the things we do here at SharePlan for our clients, but it can absolutely enhance the journey. Now, in a year's time, that might be different, and we might be looking at kind of rip and replace activities that it really fundamentally changed the business. But where we're at today, we're trying to work out, okay, in our own marketing, in the marketing we do for our customers, which of these can we bring? And as I suppose as the leader of the business, I've got that, can it reduce cost? But actually I'm thinking, can it volumize and we do more work at the same price, which I think is the same commercials, which is really, really important. So just to summarize, the steps we've been through this morning, defining the goals and your target audience. That targeting piece is very, very important. Planning your strategy and the content. What are those assets you really think are going to work at each stage of the funnel? Choosing the channels, executing it, and then the most important thing I think here is refine and iterate. When I started in marketing, you sent the artwork to a printer for a brochure and you got 5,000 back, and they went in envelopes, and you weren't iterating anything. And that whole world that we've been through on the digital marketing journey is becoming even more granular in terms of using AI to analyze your marketing activities for the best results. And I thought I'd just finish up and leave you with, and this is from yesterday. It's a guy I follow on LinkedIn called Kieran Flanagan, who's the CMO of HubSpot. And that's a very, very large organization right at the heart of marketing. And I think the point he's trying to make is that there are already things that can just be done by AI. There are some that are absolutely a mix of human and AI, and then there's a lot of human stuff only. And if you're into strategic partnerships, strategic relationships, that's not going to be an AI thing anytime soon. Negotiations, you've got to get out there onto stage, perhaps. They are human functions, right? But there's a lot of things that are moving left to right here on this slide. And I think we try and, as a professional marketing organization, we try and keep ahead of the curve on these. So I know that's been a bit of a whistle stop tour through a set of slides, and I hope that's been useful, or at least posed some questions to you guys. And I'm happy to take any questions in terms of maybe something that could assist your businesses. But thank you very much for your time. It's been great to be here.
Thank you, Tom. That was amazing. There's there's some dynamite in there, and I'm hoping there's going to be time left for me to ask a couple of questions after the other guys are gone. Before we do the questions, though, because the bit I always forget, where can people find you if they want to follow up?
On my title slide is my LinkedIn profile. I will, if you just bear with me, I will put that in the chat as well. Thank you very much. And to be honest, we're more than happy to have a discussion. Just absolutely no obligation. You know, if you want to share some challenges, or I can't get started with this, Tom, I'd be delighted to do that for anyone on this call and in the cohort. So yeah, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's got my mother's use of my full name there, which implies I'm always in trouble as Thomas, but you will find me there. So it'd be great to connect with anybody and follow up, no problem at all.
Thank you, Tom.